coming up. Kickoff coming up, John? Okay.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Observers, I recognize the presence of GECOM's technical advisors. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, very good afternoon to all of you. And welcome to yet another press conference of the Guyana Elections Commission. Today is on the eve of general and regional elections, which will be held tomorrow, Monday, the 1st of September, 2025. It is therefore fitting for us today to ensure that we provide you with an update as it relates to our state of readiness for the conduct of these very important elections. The usual protocol will obtain today. We will commence with remarks from the Chief Election Officer, and then we will have that question and answer segment where you will be able to ask your questions and seek the kind of clarifications that you require. So without further ado this afternoon, let me introduce the head table. Seated to my immediate left is the Chief Election Officer, Mr. Vishnu Prasad. To his left, the Deputy Chief Election Officer, Mr. Anil Giddins. And to my extreme left, the Civic and Voter Education Manager, Mr. Nardio Prasad. My name is Yolanda Ward, the Public Relations Officer, and I'll be your moderator for today's press conference. So without further ado, let me invite the Chief Election Officer, Mr. Vishnu Prasad, to provide you with a detailed update as it relates to GECOM's state of readiness for the conduct of general and regional elections 2025. CEO?
Thank you, Yolanda. Good afternoon again, everyone, and please allow me to join the PRO in welcoming you to this press conference, which which will in fact be the last one before we go into elections tomorrow, September 1, for the conduct of the general and regional elections. The PRO said detail, and place emphasis on the word detail. I'm sure I don't have what might be that level of expected details, but I will provide an overview of our state of readiness. I would not say state of preparations anymore, our state of readiness for the conduct of elections. Obviously, as we go forward, when I would have finished my presentation, naturally we will be taking your questions to provide what you may need to be omitted details. Now, before I proceed into providing that update, I want to touch first on two issues which most recently grabbed the headlines, traditional and social media, and I consider that it is very important for me to deal with that before we proceed, as I mentioned, with the updates. The first one has to do with the Commission approving the acceptance of late notification of appointment of agents from political parties. The Commission, the Guyana Elections Commission, at its Commission meeting held on Saturday, August 30th, 2025, approved the acceptance of the late notification of the appointment of assistant agents, polling agents, and candidates to the poll and to the count from the Alliance for Change, the Assembly of Liberty and Prosperity, Forward Guyana Movement, and the We Invest in Nationhood political parties. These parties had missed the statutory timeline for the submission in accordance with Section 24(2) of the Representation of the People Act, which requires that such notification be given to the respective returning officers no later than 7 days before election date. As a consequence, written appeals were submitted by the parties to the Commission for consideration. In this regard, a special sitting of a statutory meeting was convened and the requests were unanimously, I emphasize, unanimously approved in the interest of fairness and transparency and to ensure the integrity of the process. As a consequence of the Commission's decision, I immediately notified all of the agents of the concerned political parties by email, informing them of the development and urging them to pursue accreditation of their agents and candidates with their respective returning officers as soon as possible, given the time frame that was and still is available for this to be done. I followed up this email with telephone calls to every one of the party agents, informing them that I sent this email and urging them to take action as soon as possible. The email that I sent to the agents, I copied that email to the respective returning officers. I also called all of the returning officers, asking them to immediately start working on the accreditation of agents for whom submissions were already made to them respectively. Last night when I followed up, it was about 10 o'clock in the night, and agents were still working on that to bring themselves to a point where they won't feel cornered in terms of time to get this task completed today. The other issue I want to deal with is the request that was made by the People's Progressive Party today for late, the submission was, perhaps late is not the right word, the submission was made after the Commission had already approved the list of polling stations for the country that was submitted by the Secretariat, put together and submitted by the Secretariat. This issue went through several stages of discussions at Progressive Commission meeting. At the Commission meeting yesterday, it was raised again. It was on the agenda. That meeting was called. It was not a meeting that was in keeping with scheduled meetings of the Commission. But when they got to this issue, the deliberations, and I can say there were no disagreements in this regard. The decision was that in the interest of time, or considering that sufficient time is not available to do this, there was a unanimous decision not to go ahead with this request. That translates, you may want to say, as not approved. And this, I'm saying, notwithstanding that our logistics manager, who interrogated the request, found that at least 12 of them were justifiable. Again, the conclusion was that the time available to facilitate this change was insufficient, and therefore they were not approved. In terms of our readiness, I would start out by saying that we at this time are fully prepared to conduct the general and regional elections tomorrow, and this position is bolstered by feedback that we asked for and received from the returning officers even today, that everything is in place for the conduct of these elections. The packing of ballot boxes were completed in the presence of accredited political party agents from all contested parties. The process was conducted according to statute and procedures in an ordinary and amicable atmosphere, again involving the political stakeholders, reflecting the spirit of cooperation among GECOM and the stakeholders. Distribution of materials is well underway. Trucks have left the GECOM compound over the past few days. Ballot boxes, ballots, and other supplies have been pre-positioned across the country to be distributed within adequate time for the opening of the poll at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. In some areas, materials have already been transported by river and by air to ensure, and this has to do with our riverine, deep riverine and inland communities, that these polling stations too are fully equipped for the timely opening of the poll. Election readiness statistics. 757,690 registered voters across the country's 10 administrative regions are set to vote to elect candidates from 6 contesting parties. 2,790 polling stations will be operational across all 10 regions to facilitate the voting. A total of 13,925 polling day staff have been trained. 11,718 staff were employed. These staff have been trained to ensure consistency, transparency, and professionalism throughout the implementation of their respective tasks. The Guyana Police Force will deploy approximately 8,700 officers to maintain order during the electoral process on election day and beyond. Election observation will be conducted by approximately 500 local observers and about 200 international observers to contribute to transparency and credibility of the election. Safeguards will include the involvement of accredited political party agents, observers, and candidates from the respective political parties. Usually emphasis is not placed on these people. Candidates, there is provision for the accreditation of candidates by district, candidates to the poll who can go into any polling station to observe the poll, candidates to the GECOM who clearly has authority to be in a tabulation center to observe the GECOM.
Over 77776.
Sensitive materials, I touched on that a bit ago. Sensitive materials were transported under strict security arrangements with multiple layers of checks and verification. These movements were done with the involvement of the police force and the representatives of the contesting political parties. Recognizing that every vote counts and every voter's participation strengthens our democracy, at the level of the Secretariat, and speaking at this stage, I will take the liberty to speak on behalf of the Commission. We strongly encourage that all citizens go early, cast their vote peacefully, and respect the electoral processes throughout the day. Media and communications arrangements. We are in the process of establishing a media center which will open on Monday, tomorrow, election day at 9 a.m. at the Regency Hotel, and will remain open up to September 3rd, operating on a 24-hour basis. This media center will serve as the hub for accredited media and observers. An indicative election day communication schedule has been put in place to provide timely, accurate updates and official information throughout the process. However, nothing in this plan will be adapted to the activities of election day. And basically what it is saying, although we have said that it is a schedule, election day is a day during which fires can pop up all the time. and we will have to be firemen to deal with them, and therefore we may not be able to keep with the schedule, but we will inform you accordingly, the same way as we had to shift yesterday's meeting to today, for which I apologize. But yes, just to emphasize that we might not always be able to keep with that schedule. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, at this stage, I want to deal with a component of this presentation that I have labeled public mischief. And in this regard, I want to play a video before I address the content of this video.
Nobody want to hear her sing.
It's muted.
It's muted on the screen.
Yeah, but
Excellently.
all right, we'll improvise. DCO will.
The man look like Travis, so.
GECOM is now saying that no candidates are allowed to visit polling stations. The only persons are allowed are the agents and deputy agents. If discrepancies arises at 2 polling stations, what will happen at the other polling stations? This is a clear case where Madam Claudette Singh is giving way for rigging. The Guyana Elections Commission is planning to declare a winner without a full count of the votes. Is this democracy? Claudette Singh, Vishnu Persad, and Giddings must come forward and say if these allegations are true and if they are taking instructions from Marat Jagdeo and Irfan Ali. Remember, Andy Giddings had the server from the 2020 elections in his car for over 2 hours rigging. We, the Guyanese people, are hopeful that the Carter Center and the OAS observers are paying attention to what is going on.
Thank you. So, I want to start out by saying 2 things. First of all, this video affects me in no way, shape, or form. Has no impact on me. Secondly, I want to reject every insinuation in that video, if not accusatory comment, and to state that there is absolutely no way that any of the falsehoods that are mentioned in that video can happen. To begin with, I want to take you back to my starting point at this press conference where I dealt with the commission approving all of those parties who did not meet the deadline to ensure that their agents can be accredited and be in place to ensure that there is no prohibition insofar as monitoring the process is concerned. And I will start at the bottom from where every single contesting political party is entitled to, and once they do appoint, we will and have been accrediting their agents to polling stations, again in the interest of transparency and integrity. At another level, the law requires, and it has been implemented, political parties are allowed to appoint assistant agents to work as counterparts with deputy returning officers and deputy supernumerary returning officers. As we speak, I can give assurance that those deputy returning officers and deputy supernumerary returning officers have assistant agents assigned to them by the People's Progressive Party Civic and the APNU as far as is practicable, and by practicable I mean appointments by the respective other parties. We have been and we are in the process of accrediting them. At the district level, all of the parties already have assistant agents responsible for the respective districts, and of course we have agents for the respective parties who are responsible for these appointments. Now we have gone to the extent to say, notwithstanding we are required to issue letters of accreditation. In the case of agents and assistant agents, we are issuing accreditation badges. I'm not sure that all of the parties will be in possession of those because they have to submit photographs to us. That has not been done in many cases. At the level of the district agents and agents, they already have those badges. Now the extent that we have gone is that I had already sent out a memo to all returning officers with an instruction that my instruction be filtered down to deputy returning officers, right down to polling day staff, that even if an agent turns up with only one, because they're also being given letters of appointment from their political parties, if they do not have our letter of accreditation on election day and they only have their party list, letter of appointment, we will admit them. We will not insist that we have to see your letter of accreditation. To this extent, we have want to ensure that the access to the polling stations are facilitated, again in the interest of transparency, accountability, and integrity. Now, insofar as Claudette Singh, Vishnu Prasad, and Anil Giddings is concerned, in whatever we manipulate the results of the elections, I have to emphasize that at the level of the polling station, Claudette Singh, Vishnu Prasad, and Anil Giddings have no input in those tabulations. The results of those are posted outside of the polling station immediately after. The statements of poll are moved in tamper-proof envelopes to the deputy returning officer, who is responsible for a cluster of polling stations. Upon receipt of the statements of poll for the cluster, even the deputy returning officer doesn't have access to the contents of those envelopes. It's delivered to the supernumerary returning officer or the returning officer, supernumerary returning officer in the case where we have sub-districts. At that point, I must say again, in all these movements are accompanied by police and party agents. We have made sure that adequate transportation arrangements are put in place to say that you are moving in the same vehicle. Excuse me. At the level of the supernumerary returning officer or returning officer, as the case may be, again, Claudette Singh, Vishnu Prasad, and Anil Giddings have no presence or no input. Tabulation of the votes, the envelopes will be opened in the presence of counting agents, duly appointed counting agents for the political parties, observers who I'm sure will be there, and specially trained GECOM staff who will be responsible for two aspects of the tabulation process, one being to scan and immediately upload the statements of poll to the GECOM website, and the other one being doing the actual tabulation. Now, I'm emphasizing posting the statements of poll to the GECOM website so that all concerned can know. At that stage, although the chairman of GECOM and the chief election officer are entitled statutorily to copies of statements of poll, none out of the two of us would have even received any of the statements of poll as yet, when those statements of poll will go onto the GECOM website. And let me also assure you, it is not until the statements of poll are posted that the actual tabulation will take place. Having completed their tabulation at the level of the supernumerary returning officers or the returning officers, the results are required to be declared by law. Copies of those declarations will be sent to the chairman and to the chief election officer. All members of the commission have access to the copy that is sent to the chairman, and there is no reason why, if they ask me for a copy of my copy or to see my copy, that it will be withheld from them. So up to this stage, the chief election officer or the deputy chief election officer nor the chairman had absolutely nothing to do with tabulation of results. When the chief election officer would have received the declaration for all 10 regions, he has 12 hours to put together the national results, which includes seat allocation by parties depending on the votes that they receive, and submit that to the commission for ratification and declaration. It is the commission that makes the national declaration and not the chief election officer. And I'm emphasizing here that having prepared the national results and submitted it to the commission, which has members that were nominated from the governing and the opposition political parties, they are in possession of the declared results of all of the regions to use to verify the combination that is put forward and submitted by the chief election officer, so they can say, Mr. Chief Election Officer, you did some deliberate skullduggery here and you will go to jail. And so I needed to bring this out to dispel this notion that somehow, by some magic, some voodoo, something, that the chief election officer, deputy chief election, and the chairman is involved or has concocted some scheme to manipulate the results of the elections. It is with that in mind that we call upon all political parties and civil society organizations to appeal to their supporters, their constituents, not to attempt in any way to thwart the successful conduct of these elections. We, at the level of the Secretariat, and again, I will take the liberty to speak for the Commission. They did not give me that liberty. We reaffirm our commitment to deliver free, fair, and credible elections. The Commission extends its sincere appreciation to all political parties and their agents for their constructive amicable, and peaceful support throughout the packing and distribution process. Their presence has been and continues to be an important safeguard and a visible demonstration of trust in the process. We also thank the observers and the media for the integrity, professionalism, and scrutiny which they bring and which strengthens transparency and public confidence in these elections. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, at this point I want to pause to acknowledge the invaluable contributions as we at the level of the Secretariat went about preparing for these elections. In this regard, I want to acknowledge those contributions made by the UNDP technical experts, the team led by Mr. Pablo Galarce. I'm sure he's here. There's Pablo in the back. Contributions which always were aimed in keeping us not only on track, but in compliance with the Commission's policy decisions and the laws that govern our election. Same, I must say, with respect to Dr. Afari Jean, who is an election expert with international experience, decades of international experience, and Dr. Nazim Zaidi, a former Elections Commissioner of India, who himself has decades of international election experience. It would have been very, I would consider disrespectful of me not to recognize the contributions of these election experts. Finally, I wish to commend the dedication of GECOM staff across the country. Their tireless efforts and commitment, often going above and beyond the call of duty, which is happening as we speak, to have ensured that every ballot, every material, and every detail is in place for election day. Together, these collective contributions embody the spirit of cooperation and responsibility that is essential for the success of this historic exercise. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, CEO. We did promise not to have a detailed presentation, but that was quite extensive and comprehensive. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's now your time to ask questions and seek any clarifications you may have. I've already recognized the hand of Ms. Travis Chase and Ms. Svetlana Marshall. So, Ms. Chase?
Thank you. I appreciate the comment on the transparency of the press. We noticed, though, that one day you speak on behalf of the Commission and another day you don't speak on behalf of the Commission. So in the interest of transparency, could you help us to understand why the chairman is absent again, one day before the press conference? Secondly, elections, has the void of the presiding officers been overcome? I noticed you said that some people were declining the position. That's true. Was there an incident at Rockstone involving ballot boxes around 12:15 sometime today? Did you get that report from Rockstone? Any incident, any crash, anything at all at Rockstone? You may want to double check before you probably comment. And did the ALP indeed write GECOM on that cell phone issue at the polling station?
I have no recollection of receiving a letter from the ELP, perhaps a letter of that sort went to the chairman. I have no recollection of that. With regards to Rockstone, no, this is news to me, so I am not able to deny or acknowledge that happened. In the case of the absence of the chairman, I'm not authorized to speak why she's here or not. Someday you may run into her and you may pose that question to her. In terms of speaking for the chairman, if you might notice, I did not touch on anything of substance insofar, but just extending what is the right word? I was just wanting to use this opportunity to make appeals while not excluding the commission in terms of if we have filled a void for presiding officers. Let me make it abundantly clear. When I first spoke about issue, I did not in any way, shape, or form say that we had any void or any shortage of presiding officers. What I said was we were having people declining from those positions and we were fixing them. We were pulling places from different people. We have made an assistant presiding officer and a presiding officer, and then there would have been that shift. Since then, and even now, we have no void of presiding officers or any other officers, and especially we have not been, we will not be in communication with the GDF pertaining to providing any assistance. That will not happen.
But you would agree that the chairman should be here, though?
No, I will not agree or disagree. That's not my thing.
Just to follow up on Travis's question with regards to the presiding officer, I noticed you said you're shifting around. I received reports as early or recent as this morning, which suggested that I know training is currently ongoing and some persons are currently declining certain positions, presiding officer, assistant presiding officer, dissatisfied with the arrangements in place. I was also told that persons are not showing up to training sessions. Large groups of persons are not showing up to training sessions. And I was also told that there is somewhat of a lack of confidence in those who have been placed to, or those who have been appointed as presiding officer in some cases. And this is coming out of the training centers because I have contacts around and this is what I'm being told from those on the ground.
All right. Obviously, your contacts have deeper insight into what goes on there more than our officers in the field. A bit earlier in this press conference, I reported that based on reports that we have been receiving only today, all is in order at the police stations. And insofar as confidence is concerned, I don't know confidence from who, because we have confidence in the people who we appointed to carry out the responsibilities at the polling stations. And I may go to the extent of telling you that we have been receiving reports of persons who we shortlisted for appointment, and evidence has been provided that they were engaged in what may be seen as political activity, and we immediately remove those persons. So if that has something to do with the confidence that you're speaking about as they emerge, we have dealt with them conclusively. Insofar as persons not turning up to the training, the feedback that I have is that persons have been turning up for training. There may be, in extreme cases, somebody may have to go to the hospital, something of the sort. I'm just using that as an example, and therefore might not have been there. That does not translate into the person will not work for us on election day.
Just to follow up on your statement as well, you said that with regards to the request by the People's Progressive Party, could you just clarify how many polling stations they typically wanted to have relocated? And you said 12 of them were justifiable. If you found them to be justifiable, what systems are being put in place to ensure that whatever concern the PPP had that made them request or make such a request, that everybody would be facilitated?
So the initial request was in excess of 60, I think. I don't want to put that exact figure. And given the fact that the matter came up at several commission meetings but were not dealt with conclusively, in their own, I suspect, I don't speak for the party, in their own deliberations, they chiseled that down to 12, and those are 12 that were interrogated by our logistics manager. The justification given was accessibility to polling stations in terms of of the distance that voters will have to go to vote at a polling station. I believe it was not said so specifically, but from our end, had those 12 polling stations been approved, we would have had to go back at the level of district secretariat to print back those lists, because the venue will now be different. We would have had to go back into those boxes, engage the agents and the police and all of that. But the bigger issue here would have been, we would have less than a day to inform those voters that your polling station is now changed. That, at least to my mind, would have proven to be a disadvantage to those electors. If I were to put that in summary, that would be why those polling stations approval was not given for them to be changed.
Just one other question for me now. With regards to the sorting of the ballots or the envelopes for the members of the discipline force, is the issue that arose with regards to the extra ballots and the ones that were absent. I understand that a proposal was made for the DCO to extract, whenever it's discovered within Region 4, extract those. Could you please help us understand the method? Because the AFC is saying that it could be a recipe for disaster, so I want to know.
So the last time we met, I did report that at the level of the secretariat, we came up with a proposal, and I didn't go into the detail because the commission had not seen that proposal as yet. So we know that 2 ballots, there are 2 extra ballots in the District 4 insofar as numbers are concerned. We propose to the commission, and I have done an instructive correspondence that went into the envelope containing discipline forces ballots that will go to the gazetted polling stations where intermixing will be done. That memo instructs presiding officers to be on the lookout for 1 or 2 ballots that do not belong to District 4. They will know it because it's marked at the top for the region, and the bottom section of the ballot will be of a different color. Once we recognize those ballots, and this is where it comes, the DCO or nobody else extracts anything, we recognize that there is that ballot. Of course, nobody knows who cast that ballot. They are required to get to me as fast as possible, but the word I use there is with immediacy, through the chain of command or to me directly. The DCO in one case, because one is for District 5 and one is for District 10, poll closed at 6, so reasonably we can say that within an hour both of these ballots will turn up. The DCO will go to one of those polling stations, if chances are both ballots turn up at the same polling station, take possession of it. So these things go out with a form, a statutory form called Form 17E, on which the number of ballots that are sent there for intermixing are recorded. The DCO will have delegated authority to amend the numbers by reducing it by 1 and sign on that form. That ballot will then be taken to the closest polling station in the correct region. In the interest of time, the presiding officer of that polling station will be asked not to conclude the count of the ballots at that polling station until this ballot is delivered there. At that stage, the DCO will also have the authority to add, well, in this case, amend the Form 17 by adding a ballot. And that ballot will be counted as having been cast in that district. The same process will apply in the case of District 10. The Commission approved this as the way to go to ensure that the vote, as the elector's vote, is counted validly and for the district in which it is meant to be counted.
Good afternoon, table. My name is Julia Johnson from Prime News. I just want to ask one clarification on how many eligible voters, CEO, and in taking from Svetlana's question, are training for polling day staff still ongoing? And I have another third.
All right, Julia.
Those for now.
Right. So the number of registered voters or eligible voters as per the official list of electors is 757,690.
Okay.
Insofar as training is concerned, theoretical training is over. What we're doing, including up to today, is to do mock polls just to give them a practical feel of what transpired. This is something we did yesterday and we'll do today.
Okay. Are you still confident of the results coming in by the 2nd of September? I mean, given issues like request for recount and whatever else other challenges might be on the day of poll, are you still confident of that?
No. Well, the issue of confidence doesn't arise here. Now it is an issue of practicality. So, at the time when I gave that pronouncement, we did not consider that the act of tabulation of the results were, in fact, there is a predecessor task which in fact involved the scanning and the uploading of the statements of poll on the website. Now when we separate the two, I do not see that we can complete that exercise in less than 8 hours, especially for the higher populated regions. Maybe in districts 1 and 7 and 8, we might be able to do that. Of course, like 8, there would be a jeopardy where the statements of poll would have to wait until the next day before they come in. So that will affect that timeline. In terms of the mechanism that we have in place, and I can tell you as we're here today, the equipment to be used for the scanning and upload and tabulation of the results are up and have been tested at all of the tabulation centers. The issue of request for recount, Julia, was not factored into that. All being equal, we now should be able to have declaration in the districts by the evening of the third.
Okay.
Yes.
And
again, providing that there are no requests for refunds. So there is always that possibility.
but have you taken into account power, internet connection, and
Yes,
all
we
of
have.
that?
Yes, we have, and we have contingency plan in place.
Okay. I want to touch back on the access to the statements of poll. It has always been a bugbear for especially us, the media, because these are placed on public buildings, for example, schools, and they are in enclosed areas with security, who from time immemorial have not permitted access to those buildings to get a shot or get a photograph of the statement of poll even after the close of poll. What happens there? Is there a change in this time? Is there a possibility of us accessing those statements of polls as posted on those buildings this time around?
Transparency.
So in responding to that, I can tell you clearly, after we have surrendered the premises back to whether it's a school or a private residence, we have no say in who access that building. That is totally out of our hands. And as you would all be aware, the media is not allowed in polling places. And here I want to deal with something. Notwithstanding the 200-yard boundary of a polling station, we have never and we will not prevent media people from operating any vehicles, but not within a polling place, not within a polling station. So, to answer your question, dear Julia, as to how you can go and get that picture from the actual statement of poll on the outside of a polling station, I do not see, and I would not mislead you by telling you that there is authority for you to do that, or that I have authority to instruct that you will be allowed to do that. However, what might be a saving grace is that the statements of poll will all be published on the GECOM website, and they will be accessible from the media center. That may provide some solace, if that word is applicable, but outside of that, we are unable to facilitate any other closer contact with statements of poll at those polls.
I recognize the hand of
So after 4 from ASD, I just wanted 2 questions, and one just to make sure I understood what you said by the evening of the 3rd. Does that mean that you can announce the president on the September 3rd?
No, no. I was speaking about the district declaration. But once we have the district declaration in place for all the districts by the evening of the 3rd, and all of those declarations get to me by the morning of the 4th, the national declaration, the commission should be able to make that, because I will immediately proceed to put together the results of the districts to come up with those national declarations, results.
Yeah, and the second question, a couple of weeks ago you spoke about talking with the Guyanese army about the Sekibo. Did you have a special plan to protect the border, or if anything happened? Where are those discussions?
As the CEO, this much I can tell you in terms of the involvement of the army and police, is that they have given their consent to escort our people in those areas to ensure their safety insofar as the conduct of their work is concerned. As it relates to the integrity of our borders, I am not qualified to speak on that at all. I would really be trespassing if I were to do that.
Abina.
I just wanted some clarification on the use of cell phone. If a voter refuses to surrender the voter, put it at the side of them when it's time to vote, would that voter be, is there any penalty in place, or would that voter be barred from?
So, and this is where it gets tricky when something, and I have to answer your question. This is where it gets tricky when we are going to be implementing rules, and then we will have to go into the detail. But I have to answer your question, and I will do so honestly. There is no law that prohibits the use or people taking their phones into a polling station. However, as a matter of policy, the Commission has introduced these rules. A voter may refuse to surrender, is not the word that I will use, to put his phone down on a desk or table that may be provided for them, and try to put it in his pocket. The key issue here is that a voter must not use his phone or any other recording device to take a photo of his ballot after he has voted. And whereas we don't have powers of arrest or powers of any of that sort, what we will do is to make a note of that. We know the voter, we have his particulars, and we will make a report to the police so that the police can do an investigation. And if the investigation turns out that in fact a law was breached, the police will take the necessary action.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions?
Just one more clarity. You said that the media wouldn't be barred from going close to a polling station, but they're not allowed to go into a polling place
Or
a
polling
station.
place, yes.
Oh, so outside of a polling station, right there is
A polling place.
polling place. Right outside is okay.
Right. So a school
Not
is a
outside
polling place.
by the door, outside by the room.
Not you.
Well, just a clarification and a follow-up to Bina's question. Traditionally, we've had party leaders going to cast their ballots, and the media follow them into that space, polling place.
And traditionally, Julia, the problem had always been that the media turned their camera into the polling station. That is not allowed.
Is this the same for the president?
Sorry?
In his delegation going to vote?
He's a party leader.
Because I know the practice, I'm just trying to figure out what will happen tomorrow.
Wait outside.
Repeat the question.
I'm asking, you're saying reporters, journalists would not be allowed to go close to the door of the polling station to capture anything, right? I'm asking if this applies to the president, who's a party leader,
Let me qualify.
and his media team.
The president will go to vote, so too will be the leader of the opposition. Well, there's no leader of the opposition now, but Mr. Norton will go, and I'm sure he will also want to have his photograph taken at that stage. And without having the authority, I am saying we will allow persons. In fact, I believe there was a request because there would be a need to engage with the media. One of the major observer teams will be making a statement, having visited one of the polling stations. Somebody else asked to do that. But those type of things, they attract media coverage. There's value in those coverage, so I will look the other side.
And this applies to all 6 candidates.
Yeah, because you mentioned Norton and the president, so I know that there's 6
6 contesting parties.
Okay, just to clarify, what we cannot have is a case of the poll being interrupted by these engagements. If we will allow for an interview, which you find to be necessary at that point, please allow that person to exit the polling station as you move to the side and not block the entrance. I had a particular case at the Guyana Defense Force on Disciplined Forces Balloting Day when I asked the press to move to the side, and I was told it's wherever the president wants it. That cannot be our modus operandi. The president, if he recognizes the press at a distance, the president will come there to give an interview. We cannot afford to have the polls being interrupted. We've referenced what the law requires so insofar as interruption to the poll, and we must ensure that we maintain that order while keeping the accessibility of the media and their coverage at those respective places. Is there another question? Shan.
Yeah, just a quick clarification from me.
Shani, I can't hear you.
Sorry, right. Just a quick clarification from me, because I didn't understand this properly. The announcement of the results by the ROs, is that something you will be able to record and it's on the media?
No, you're not allowed in that tabulation center.
Okay, I see Ms. Bell.
Just one very simple question, CEO. We know today there's not supposed to be any sort of campaigning activities happening. What can GECOM do about any activities that are perceived to be campaigning? For example, there have been some media interviews happening today. There have been some parties doing talk shows, etc. What can GECOM do in relation to those that may be perceived as the parties campaigning?
So responding that, are we to conclude therefore that having a poster up somewhere or having party flags up somewhere is a continuation of campaigning? I mean, I'm saying that against the background. So sitting in a studio with being interviewed by you, I don't consider that campaigning as the intent of the need not to have. I think the thing applies to things like having police and rallies and those things, and that is why we would have seen, well, at least the major parties had their concluding rally yesterday.
Alright, just to follow up on the Shannon's questions with regards to witnessing the declarations. If my memory serves me right, the media was allowed to witness declarations in the 2020 elections. What sparked the change and how this would affect, the issue of transparency in this whole, if we're not being able to record this moment?
So insofar as transparency is concerned regarding the declaration of results, there will be representatives of the political stakeholders in that tabulation center who would have participated throughout the process from statement 0 to statement wherever it ends. They would have agreed to the contents of the results for the district. There will be observers. Observers are allowed to be in that polling station. There is a specific section of the law that speaks to the persons who are authorized to be in the office of a returning officer insofar as the tabulation and declaration of the results is concerned. That provision does not include media.
I just want to clarify before we leave. It's Ward to the head table. Has there been any duplication of observers from one group to another? And is this at all possible?
In terms of duplication, I can tell you what I know is that for one particular local observer group, a set of names were duplicated. But you're talking about
That's what I'm talking about.
yeah.
The local observer group.
It's an error on our part. When the staff put together, I asked for an explanation how did this happen, but I think the staff was scared to actually say what happened. But we recognize it, and yes, that will be correct.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your questions. We hope that we've provided the necessary clarification. Over the past 2 weeks at these press conferences, we've had several requests for statistics, and therefore it will be remiss of me to close today's press conference without providing you with a breakdown of some of those statistics. So I will start, first of all, with the breakdown by district of eligible electors that are expected to cast their ballot tomorrow. So in District 1, we have 24,453. In District 2, we have 42,596. In District 3, 116,876. And District 4, 323,436. District 5, 50,796. District 6, 111,554. District 7, 17,846. District 8, 9,192. District 9, 22,481. And District 10, 38,460, giving us that total of 757,690 on the official list of electors. There were also some questions in relation to eligible first-time voters. I did provide some initial statistics which essentially only captured those eligible first-time voters 18 years and older, or equal to 18 years and older at this election. But we've had registration cycles where we will have persons older than 18 years old that have registered and are now eligible electors. So that statistics now gives us a total of 27,879 eligible first-time voters. In District 1, we have 2,076. District 2, 1,733. District 3, 4,107. District 4, 9,580. District 5, 1,637. District 6, 3,267. District 7, 1,284. District 8, 821. District 9, 1,883. And District 10, 1,491. Ladies and gentlemen,
Just one question.
one question from Sledlack.
No, I'm happy that you brought this up because this is a question that I forgot to ask. You're saying that the first-time voters, those turned 18 or transition from 14 to 18 years old, and those who would have registered during the registration cycle is 27,000 plus. Am I correct? Now, the voters list would have shifted from, in 2020, from 600,000 plus to 750,000 plus. My question is, what is responsible for that 100,000 plus increase? If I got it right. Because initially I was told that 13,000.
Those are now becoming 18.
I understand. So of this 27,000, you have 13,000 who are now 18 years and just over. And the rest, I assume, the remainder are those who registered during the registration cycle. So the question still remains as to how the list moved from 600,000 plus in 2020 to 750,000 plus in 2025. What accounted for that more than 150,000 plus increase?
If I may.
Yes, I mean.
So those figures provided by Yolanda cater to the recent cycles of registration.
Right. This is just
The extraction of the preliminary list of electors from the National Register Registry, which caters to 14 and over. So the 18 years old would have come, the statistics you received would have been for the extraction of that list, the PLE onto the OLE. Since 2020, there have been several cycles. Continuous registration phases 1 and 2, and in between claims and objections. All of those will be responsible for the, what is, I should say, a historic trend. Because if you look at OLEs dating backwards, I think there was some document on here, it hovers around 100,000 odd every cycle of election cycle.
So Donna, we can provide those figures progressively through the PRA.
Would that be also a breakdown of the Commonwealth voters who have been registered to vote in this election? Do you have that kind of breakdown also? The eligible Commonwealth persons residing in Guyana.
we haven't done that.
So you have 27,000 first-time voters.
As of from this last extraction.
But do you have a timeline for this last extraction of like which cycle? Let's
From the
say
extraction
September.
of the TLE for claims and objections onto this the OL.
And you have a date for that? September, let's say September last year, July this year? Any?
July this year. Sorry, the OS.
Just a quick question, Mr. Commonwealth. Is there any gender segregation of this data, of this 27,000, how many male and female?
We have a gender segregation of the entire OL. I can provide that to you, but not necessarily for this last year.
But may I point out that we have never found this necessary because in our election process and generally there is no disadvantage that women are placed at when it comes to registering or voting. We're all citizens who want to meet the criteria for registration and voting. you are allowed to.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the media, it has certainly been a pleasure engaging with you again at today's press conference. I look forward to engaging with you over the next few days and providing and updating you as we proceed over these next few days. Best wishes and all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the media.